Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Nice to be here, Robert. Thanks for having me.
So, you're a motivational speaker, you're a mentor, coach. You've authored a book called Walk On that's been featured on Good Morning America. I've seen where you've been on NBC News. You've been on numerous sports shows, and College Game Day being one of them. You've been featured on there. You've also been on Jim Rome, just to name a few. But your story is one of pain to purpose. It's one that it's going to be tough for me with this interview. We've talked about that, but it's one of every parent's worst nightmare. And first, I just want to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what you and your family have gone through, continue to go through, and have had to endure. But I also want to say how much I admire you. I admire your strength. I admire your grit. I admire how you've taken this and have used it for inspiration to go out and help others. And I think that's what life's about. And I wanted to have you on here to share your story, to talk about the book, and just talk about what you're doing as well. And just thank you again for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the nice words.
Yeah. Can we jump in? Do you mind sharing your story and what really inspired you to write Walk On?
Yeah, so it was August of 2020. I'm married to a beautiful woman named Kelly. We have two boys, Jake and Liam. They're separated by 5 years. Jake's the older brother. Both boys, I always joke, both boys were born in Sin Cities. So Jake in New Orleans, Liam in Las Vegas.
There you go.
So that may explain a little. But Jake was 16. It was early August. He just started dating his first girlfriend, and she invited him on a weekend getaway to Block Island, which is a small, tiny island off the coast of Rhode Island, about 2 hours from where we live in Connecticut. Initially, we said no. We had just returned home from a family trip, and my wife and I thought that there's just no reason. They had only been dating, like I said, 5 or 6 weeks. And then we had a microburst come through our town. And it was like a mini tornado, and it took down a lot of trees, and we lost power. And Jake was pretty persuasive as well. But without power, we considered and said, he'll go away for a couple of days, enjoy a weekend, and come home. So he left on Friday, August 7th, early in the morning. 2 days later, on Sunday, August 9th, around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my wife got a call from the mother of the girlfriend, who said there'd been an accident. Jake was injured, but she had no other details. She wasn't at the scene. Kelly quickly packed an overnight bag. I grabbed Liam, and we hopped into her car and began to speed towards Rhode Island, not knowing really anything. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, I didn't know anything about where he was, what was involved, and I just thought broken arm, collarbone, something. That's where my head was at. And we were about 12 minutes into the drive, and I was flying on the I-95, and Kelly's phone rang, and it was connected to the car speaker. And it was a doctor from Rhode Island. He introduced himself, and then he paused, and he said, "I'm sorry, I just pronounced your son dead." And everything pretty much went black. I knew I had to get off the highway. Everything just slowed down. Like, I can't even put words to it. It was this out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
We got off the highway, and then it was a Sunday, and there was a bank parking lot straight ahead right off the exit, and I just ran right through the light, pulled in there. It was empty, and we just opened our car doors. We all got out and just started screaming. Kelly still had the phone in her hand, and the doctor was on, and we just ran in circles until we all kind of fell as a broken blob of humanity to the ground. And later that Sunday evening, the details surfaced, and Jake was a passenger in a vehicle that was operated recklessly and had gone off the road and hit a telephone pole. The driver was arrested and charged with reckless driving and driving under the influence. And the driver was Jake's teenage girlfriend. And our world blew up with this
Yeah.
news. It just it was absolutely soul crushing,
Yeah.
and it's a life sentence, to be perfectly honest with you. We're coming up on 5 years this August 9th. Um, it doesn't get any easier. It gets lighter in different ways, but there's just constant triggers and reminders. Jake left a really large footprint. He lived in every time zone. Had friends spanning the country and spanning generations, as old as in '96 and as young as 4 or 5. And he was this huge personality, an extrovert on steroids.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful, good-looking kid. He had a head of hair that men and women craved. Get beautiful blonde curls. We called it the blonde afro. And I don't know where he got that hair gene, but even I was jealous. And he just was this. He was the type of kid who lifted up everyone he encountered. They just had this magnetic personality that was electric. When he walked into the room, you knew it visually and you felt it. It was palpable and contagious, and it was beyond devastating for our family losing Jake. It was a really rough first 2 years.
How do you go forward? Like, how do you have the strength to go forward? I don't know if I could.
Yeah. Well, I think if you have other children, that's one main reason, because you're compelled to still be a parent, even though you don't feel like you're capable of in those moments. But I'll never forget the first night, that Sunday night, we laid in bed and I didn't sleep, but Liam crawled in bed with us. And I'll never forget, he said, "What happens when you guys are gone?
Ugh.
I'll be all alone." And that really hit. And you go one day at a time, literally 1 minute at a time.
Yeah.
At that point, it was pure survival. Like I said, I couldn't put thoughts together. We were in shock. And I think that obviously protects you from a lot of the traumatic pain that has penetrated your body. I was really focused on making sure that my wife and son and our family survived. At different points in time, neither my wife or Liam wanted to live. And so collective survival was what I fought for. And it's not for the faint of heart. Like I said, I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. It is a life sentence. It's every day. There's markers all through the year, right on the calendar, that you just, we circle every year, right? You just come back around.
Yeah.
There's the holidays are tough. Thanksgiving to Christmas, those are family times where you see people gathering, kids coming home from college. Well, Jake's not. His birthday's May 13th. That's always hard. This year, we should have turned 21. So a big rite of passage. August.
The graduations,
Yeah. Everything. So we're doing our best. We've come a long way. We're still standing, and you find a way to walk on. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of strength and grit and grace, gratitude. But it's literally one day at a time. It takes a lot of therapy. I'll put that out there. We needed therapeutic help, and still to this day get it. Great grief therapist who's done nothing but grief for 40 years. And he was a true lifesaver. I don't know if Kelly and I would still be together or even be around if he wasn't there.
It's tough. It's tough on a marriage. For a friend that I know that's gone through that, it's very tough on a marriage.
Yeah. Well, men and women grieve completely differently.
Yeah.
And so you share this same common tragedy, but how you cope and process and deal are completely different. So I often say it's like an onion. You just keep peeling back the layers, and there's just more and more, and that makes it complex and challenging. But Kelly and I were committed to each other and to the family, and we've weathered, the worst thing that can happen. That's what I say. This is the worst thing that can ever happen to me. So anything from here on out is
to any parent. Yeah.
Details. I'm just like, and I live my life that way now. I live literally day to day, in the moment, focused on what I have, which is today, trying to maximize it. and trying to do as much good as I can, because that's why we're here. We're here to love each other and lift each other up. And we complicate things with um, minimizing the world down to like very, um, very small sometimes, right? And
Yeah.
it's very big, and we're just small granules of sand in this big picture. And it is about being there for one another, showing up.
Are you guys spiritual? Has faith played a part in this, or?
So it is for me. So
Yeah.
we were both raised Catholic,
Yeah.
but we joke with our recovering Catholics. We belong to a congregational church here.
Yeah.
Kelly lost her faith
Yeah.
in this. I certainly question it. I think anyone who's gone through something like this, you
Yeah.
question everything. when this
Absolutely.
happens.
It's
Um,
normal.
yeah, I have deep faith. We're very spiritual, but my faith is more than just religion. It's Buddhism and Native American culture. It's a mix of a lot of different things that all kind of blend together and support each principle in what I think life is about.
Yeah. How's Liam?
Liam's doing great now. Thanks for asking. He had a rough 2 years.
Yeah.
He had to change his school. Um, he wanted to go somewhere where he wasn't Jake's little brother, where
Yeah.
he could have a fresh start, which I totally understood. So we enrolled him in a private school for 8th grade, and it really helped. It was small. He was embraced with love and care, and he made some good friends. And then he went away for summer camp, and he came home. He ran into a bunch of buddies from our town and who we went to the public school with, and they are like, "You got to come back. You got to come back." And he came home and said, "I want to go back. I want to go to the same high school. I'm ready." And so he's at the same high school that Jake attended, following the same exact path where they both go to an aquamarine school in the morning.
Cool.
That's part of like a co-op with our school.
Mm-hmm.
Spends the morning there studying aquamarine life and science, and then he comes back and takes his core classes at the school. Um, he participates in track and field now. He throws the javelin. He's actually getting really good at it. So he's kind of found, and Liam was not an athlete per se. He's kind of found his niche, you know.
Yeah. It's good.
He's finding his true identity, and I'm extremely proud of him. He's been through a lot, and he's definitely emotionally mature for a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
He's
I'm
old.
sure. I just thought about this. Do you find yourself, is it hard not to be overly protective of Liam?
It was initially that I remember the first time that someone came to pick him up after Jake died, and we let him get in the car of another person, and you swallowed pretty hard in that
Yeah.
moment. But one of the takeaways from this experience is that we all think there's this illusion of control. We feel like we have control over our kids, right? But the reality was, and I blame myself when Jake died, even though I wasn't there, Robert. But
Yeah.
as a father, my job is to provide for my family and to love my family, most especially my children, and keep them safe. And I
Yeah,
felt like I
protect.
failed, and I beat myself up for a while. And then I realized there was nothing I could have done. I wasn't there. And
Yeah.
I had sent Jake away many times, sports camps, friends' houses, family trips to visit family on an airplane. So he'd been away a lot on his own, and there was nothing different about this trip, or should not have been anything different. So that illusion of control was just blown to smithereens, and you realize how little you do control on this planet. And so when I embraced that concept, it was a lot easier just to not worry over every little thing. You can't raise your kids in a bubble. Liam needs to live, and he needs to discover life on his terms. And so you just have to let go, and you realize I don't control that anyway. The minute he steps off my lawn, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
That
You're right.
hopefully give him the guidance and the wisdom and the virtues and character traits while he's on my lawn, so that when he leaves, he carries those with him.
Yeah. It would be so tough. It would be extremely tough. I love the mindset that you guys have, and because he does have to live. You can't
Yeah,
wrap him in a bubble. You can't keep him in the house. You do have to let him go out and spread his wings and live.
yeah. It was
Um,
about 3, 4 months into the grieving process. I looked at Liam one day, and I just, I, his look just caught me, and I thought, man, he's 11 years old. I'm 52 at the time, and I'm struggling. I'm like,
yeah,
how's an 11-year-old boy supposed to accept this and
yeah.
cope, right, and just process? And so I asked him to go upstairs and get his buck knife and to come outside. He did. We walked across our property over to an old mature tree, and I asked him to carve a swath of bark off the tree. And he obliged. And then he looked at me and said, now what, Dad? And I said, now we're going to watch this tree regrow bark. It's going to heal itself, but it's going to take time. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. It's going to be a different color, maybe, different texture, but it will find its way. And like this tree, you and I are going to do the same. And I'm not going to lie to you, we're never going to be the same, but we are going to find a way to heal and to walk on. And I wanted him to believe in himself and in the process and just to trust.
How did you? I love that. How did that come to mind?
It just, I think I read something about it in a Native American book, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool, visual way to teach Liam. And these kids today, as you know, they're visual learners. They're used to
Yeah.
watching videos, YouTube, how to, right? And it just really struck me, and I thought it's probably better than anything I can really verbalize.
I wonder how many times he went out there when he was faced or with hard, hard memories and grieving, and went out there and looked at that tree and
Yeah.
saw the progress. I wonder.
I know about a year or so later, he came running over and said, Dad, look, it's just about fully back. And we
Wow.
just kind of looked at each other and smiled. And like I said, he's come a long way, and I'm proud of him. And but there's not a day that we don't think about Jake. I think about
No,
him
of
10,000 times
course.
a day.
That is beautiful, and I'm going to steal that at times and tell others. And I love that. Do you mind telling more about Jake? I want to know about him. I mean, he's got this great personality. I know about his head of hair, and which I envy. Um, but I would just like to know more about him. Like, what did he enjoy doing? Obviously it was sports, as well. But like, your favorite memories, your favorite time when you think back, is there one thing that like, wow, that was really impactful? Just me and Jake or something. Do you mind
Yeah.
going there?
It's hard to limit to one, honestly. There's so
Yeah.
many great memories, and I run them through my mind all the time because that's all you got left. But
Yeah.
Jake was just, like I said, larger than life. He had a perpetual smile on his face. He loved being around people. The more, the merrier was his motto. Just, and wherever he went, he never went alone. There was always people in tow. Um, he played lacrosse and football, but he was involved in his church youth group. He was a junior deacon. He was a volunteer at the library book sale. The library's across the street from our home. He was a keystone leader at the Boys and Girls Club, which is a leadership club. Jake had his hand in just about everything, and he was a maximizer. He was looking to have the most fun 24/7 as one could. When I kind of look back at it now, maybe I'm justifying or it's a coping process, but I realize kind of why he did things the way he did, because he maybe on some level he knew, but he maximized his 16 years, that's for sure.
Wow.
Favorite memories, sports were a big bonding thing for us. I took him, he was 5 years old, and I represented a race car driver in the Indy 500, and I took Jake with me. And I'll never forget that. Like, he fell asleep. It was a long, hot day, and he fell asleep in my lap for a good part of the race. And it's a long race. But I remember carrying him out on my shoulders and just talking about the race, and just stopping and turning around and looking back at the Indy 500. Has a massive footprint.
Yeah.
and just recognizing how cool that was have such a special day like that with Jake. He was there at the Belmont Stakes when American Pharoah won the Triple Crown, ending the
Wow.
37-year drought. And that was really special. We had a trifecta that day for like $800. And obviously to a 12-year-old boy, that's pretty,
Yeah, that's substantial.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then there was just the laughter. The things I remember about Jake are his laugh, which was constant, his joy, and his bear hugs. When Jake hugged you, you knew it. He just enveloped you, and they were solid. And he wasn't afraid to hug it, anyone, anywhere. And he was a mama's boy in many ways, and was very confident and comfortable with, being that, and also being the strong, confident athlete, equally.
Yeah, looking at pictures online, you can't help but look at his pictures and smile. And it's just like the pictures on there, it just radiates happiness, radiates life, fun, good looking kid.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear more. I mean, I wish I would have met him. But I just wanted to hear more about him. And I don't know if this is the proper question to ask, but is there something that you want people to remember about Jake? Like, is there?
Yeah, I always, there is. And Jake, I say that Jake reminds us all that we're born with one obligation, and that's to be authentically who we are. Because if I had to describe Jake in one word, it would be authentic. He was a rare soul in an overcrowded planet of mundane.
Yeah.
And he stood out, and he continues to stand out. He's a brilliant, bright light to this day. I have people that come up to me all the time and tell me stories about not only experiences they had with Jake while he was here, but also surreal experiences with him popping into their dreams, or them thinking about him out of the blue and something happening. He's still ever present and shining his light pretty brightly upon a lot of people.
Yeah, you hear that, and I believe that. I mean, I do. I really do. Wow. And just kind of maybe guardian angel looking down, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And
I've come to believe and realize really that the veil is much thinner than we believe between here and there.
yeah, I believe that. And there's no telling where he's had his touch on things. So
earlier, and I forgot to answer, but why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Walk On. I didn't start out to write a book, Robert. I started by writing a goodbye letter to Jake, and it was painful, and I had to stop and start a lot. And after I did that exercise with Liam, I realized how much, Liam needed help. And I happened to stumble upon some old Post-it notes. I had a tradition with the boys where I would write morning messages, started with Jake, because he was 5 years older, on Post-it sticky notes, and leave them on Jake's lunch bag or on the kitchen island. And then he would read them to Liam. And then when Liam was old enough, he could read them. And they were quotes from known and unknown personalities, my own thoughts, and they were dealt with a lot of character traits and values that I thought were important and many non-negotiable. And the goal was simple. I just wanted to impart wisdom into their developing heart, mind, and soul.
Yep.
And after stumbling upon those, like I said earlier, you question everything. I thought, what a bunch of bullshit, you're right. I was just like, this means nothing, And I found myself having to sit with those and figure out where's the truth in them. And so doing that process, I started to write about them in the manner of reviewing my relationship with Jake and everything he stood for. And I realized in writing that maybe this could help Liam. And when I finished writing it, I thought, well, maybe this can help more than just Liam. And so on a lark, I just decided to send out a book proposal to about 40 different publishing houses and agents. And lo and behold, I heard back from 4 with interest. And I was like, wow. So I had some Zoom calls and went with Kohler Publishing out of Virginia Beach, and they've been wonderful. And they published the book last April, and it's been wild to see the
Success.
the reception and the success of it. And to me, success is defined in this case by people telling me how much it's helped them. And it's not just for people that have lost a child, because grief is universal and it comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. We all deal with grief on some form.
Oh yeah.
Lose a job, a relationship suffers, we may separate or divorce, get diagnosed with a bad health condition or a fatal condition. Our house gets burned down. You suffer a financial crisis. There's just a lot of, you develop an addiction. There's a lot of grief on this planet. And it was just a way for me to try to help everyone who has their own grief, whether, again, that's a loss of a child, a loss of a parent, or their own particular hardship or struggle. Because at the end of the day, you have a choice. You can wallow or you can walk on. And
That's it.
It's that simple.
That is it right there. And I feel like when we go through things, and you do have a choice, right? And I feel like when you start to emerge, which you have, I just feel like it's our God-given duty to help others through that process that we see going through that or similar type processes. And you're to be commended on doing that. And I'm glad that you put it into words. And the reviews of the book and the people that have reviewed it, the things they've said is just phenomenal. And I'm guilty of not reading it yet, but I can assure you that I will. And I look forward to that. And I want to step back. Is there, if you're okay doing this, I would love to know, as you're going through the depths of hell, is there something that you wish, maybe advice that somebody would have given you at that time that maybe you could share with other people? Or
Yeah, I think one, get help, right? It's okay not to be okay, because you feel like absolute shit. And there's days you don't want to get out of bed. There's days you don't want to change out of your pajamas. My wife stayed in the house for like a year. I ran to the grocery store, and I would do it in the early morning hours when there weren't a lot of people there, so I could get in and out.
Yep.
Patience is a big part of it, like being patient, but also asking for help. Like, we don't ask for help a lot, right? We're not conditioned to often. We all figure we can find our own way out. But honestly, I've never seen anybody climb to the top of the mountain on their own. They may literally, but in reality, they got there because of a lot of other people that supported them along the way. And that's what you need support. Grief is a scary topic for a lot of people. Our society kind of treats it that way and applies a stigma to it. So I would say the number one thing is to show up.
Good.
People always say, I don't know what to say. Well, no shit, right? Because guess what? There's nothing you can say that's going to make me feel any better. There just isn't. So don't worry about what you say. Just say you're sorry and hug them and leave it at that, and just sit there with them and be there. Do things for them. I had a neighbor mow my lawn for 4 months. I had another one come and walk our dogs. We have 2 dogs. He came every day around noon and walked our dogs for like 3 months. We had a food train for a year and 2 months.
Wow.
So showing up is big, and don't ask them, hey, what can I do for you? Just do it. Because if you ask them, they're going to be like, nothing, I got it. No worries. I'm good. Because they don't want to be in imposition. So showing up, finding a way to lift them up, encourage them to take a walk, to get out, to talk about their feelings. And that's another thing, right? So I've learned in this process that our vulnerability is our strength. And that's a twisted concept for men, because we're taught kind of the opposite.
Right.
Not to cry.
Right.
If I had a nickel for every time my dad said, get knocked down, get up, get back up again.
Yep. And
we live to that credo. I'd probably be retired. But this isn't something you get knocked down and get back up from immediately. It's physically impossible. I lost 15 pounds. I barely slept for months. No appetite. you have no energy. And to this day, everything is like my brain is probably 75% of what it used to be.
Yeah.
My energy level is not the same. Um, you you develop new boundaries to protect yourself um, from triggers, um, and you don't fight the tears. They're going to come, and they come unwelcome and uninvited, and sometimes in public places. I just let it just roll with it. Um, your vulnerability is your strength, and if we could embrace that more, we'd probably be a lot more kinder to each other, more helpful. We'd show up more. We'd be worried less about what others think, and we'd honor that it's more important what we do than what we say.
I'm so happy you went there, because that was the other part of my question was for those on the outside. What do what do you suggest? And I'm so happy, how can they be helpful? I'm so happy you addressed that. I lost my dad when I was 10, and and I've had different losses throughout. And the one at 10, I remember it was very interesting because you learn a lot about friends. People show up that you would never expect to show up in your life, like people that maybe were acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
Turn out to be some of the most loyal people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of the people that maybe were considered friends
Tripped
at
away.
the time, they abandon you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I myself had a huge problem with that. And one was because when my dad passed away, it was one of his best friends. Just never really had much more to do with us. A little bit, but not much. Not what you would think to being his best friend. And I had this anger. Like, how could you claim to be his friend? I actually approached him years later and never, I wanted to get an answer, but I think I had so much anger, it came out of me that I think he was shocked in his face. And I think he realized the negative impact it had on me. I never got the answer from him of why.
Mm-hmm.
But after going through other things in life, I think I figured out a lot of people, they just don't know what to do, and I think it's the same thing, whether it's divorce, people are afraid, ooh, it's catching, or, ooh, I don't want to go there, but that's the worst. And I think when you said it, it's just being there, just showing up,
Yeah. It's
just,
so true.
just
It's
doing.
so terrified, right? And
Yeah.
they call the children, the siblings who lose a sibling, the forgotten grievers.
Yeah.
Because think about it, Liam was 11.
Yeah.
His peers aren't equipped to talk to him about this subject at all. The teachers don't want to ask a question for fear that he's going to emotionally lose it in the classroom.
Yeah.
So nobody asks Liam how he's doing. They say, "How are your parents doing?" And we see that a lot with children who've lost a sibling, and which is really sad. And but it is about just showing up, and you're going to lose friends, and you're also going to, like you said, you're going to gain some amazing people. We've lost people that we thought we were closer with because they just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But we're also unafraid, and we put it out there. We're going to talk about Jake.
Good.
We're going to continue to honor him, and we do that through scholarships, among other ways. But we're going to say his name. We're going to tell stories, and it makes some people uncomfortable. But it's like, it's my son, right? You talk about your son. I hear all these parents talking about their kids, and he's doing this at college, or he's going to this club, or got accepted here or there, and that's fine. I'll listen to their stories. It stings a little bit, but I have the gravitas to hear their stories. I would hope that they would have the same. If I recall a story, or or share something that cool that might have happened, between the realms that made the hair on my arm stand up. So it's the golden rule, right? Just treat people the way you want to be treated.
That's it. You touched on it, the scholarship. So I watched the video, South Carolina, when you with the team, it's online and it's on YouTube. And man, it was hard to watch. I'm usually not an emotional person. This subject, it hits me deep. It hits me really deep. Do you mind telling about the scholarship that you guys do?
Yeah, not at all. So we actually We have 3 scholarships now. They're all called the Jake Panus Walk-On Scholarship. The first one started in the days after Jake's passing. We were getting so many flowers. We didn't need any more. And Kelly had a great idea that Jake had the year before gone to South Dakota with his church youth group on a mission trip and he did a lot of, he spent 10 days helping Lakota children learn key life skills, math, learning to read, also having fun, just playing games and just being Jake with them. But he came home deeply affected from that experience, and he recognized the inequalities between how they were living and how in South Dakota and how he was living in Connecticut. And he wanted to do something about it. The following year's trip was canceled because of COVID. So he didn't get to go back, and then he died 2 months later. So we partnered with our church and Red Cloud Indian School in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. It's one of the poorest areas in the country. And there's a particular area on the reservation called Red Shirt Table where our church goes and helps every year, where Jake spent that 10 days. And so we created a scholarship that awards college scholarships to kids from Red Shirt Table who graduate from Red Cloud Indian School. And so far we've awarded 3 in 4 years to 3 Lakota young women who are all now pursuing degrees in college and becoming, nurses and business women. It's exciting and it's cool to see. I took Liam out there for the first graduation in May of 22. And initially, Robert, that scholarship was just called the Jake Panus Memorial Scholarship. And then I knew as his father that I wanted Jake's goal in dream school was South Carolina. I went there. He wanted to follow my footsteps. He was sort of raised a Gamecock.
He had no choice, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But he took to it right away. He had a love for college football like I do, deep. Yeah. And he would spend Saturdays on the couch with me watching college football. So it was 2 days before Christmas, that 2020. And my wife and I went for a walk, and I left my phone behind, which I normally didn't do, but it was a joyless time in our house. Mm-hmm. And we just wanted to get away and get out of the house. So we went for a long walk, came home, and I had a bunch of messages on my phone. And one of them was an 843 number, which is a South Carolina prefix, low country, Charleston area. And I thought, oh, it's one of my college buddies trying to cheer me up, right?
Yeah.
And I hit the voicemail play button. And lo and behold, it was Shane Beamer. He'd been on the job for 2 weeks, just hired. He still hadn't even moved his family from Oklahoma. And he had heard the story of Jake and Jake's fandom and desire to be a Gamecock. And he reached out, which spoke volumes about his character and sense of humanity. And he left his number, said, call back. I want to talk to you and Liam. So we called him back, and we went to voicemail, and he texted and said, I'm on the phone actually interviewing a coach, trying to fill my staff. Give me a few hours and I'll circle back. And he did, and we FaceTimed and talked, and he was incredible talking to Liam. It reminded me of Jake.
Really?
Excuse me, the way he looked out for Liam and cared. It was pretty cool. And we hung up from that call, and a few hours later it hit me. I said, I think I have a way to get Jake to South Carolina. And so after the holidays, I texted Shane and said, I have this idea, walk-on scholarship. Shane was a walk-on himself at Virginia Tech. So he totally got it right away, was supportive. And so the Jake Panus walk-on scholarship was born, and we quickly raised funds that became endowed. Last year, something really cool happened. Game day came to South Carolina for the LSU game in September. We got jobbed by the refs that day. We should have beat LSU. Terrible call. Took away 2 touchdowns. We won't get into that though. And
my youngest son would disagree with you on that, but
game day was there, and as you know, Pat McAfee.
Yep.
Is that kicking competition, and so I sent down. We have these shirts that say "Walk On for Jake," and so I sent down a shirt through some connections I had, hoping that McAfee would wear the shirt and on the segment. Instead, McAfee gave the shirt to the college student who was going to be the kicker that day that they had pulled from the crowd. And this kid had a little too much to drink, and let's just say his kick was less than memorable. It was a shank. And Pat had said, if you make the kick, I'll give $60,000 to the scholarship. But even though he shanked it, Pat, being Pat, still gave the money to the scholarship, which was just beautiful.
Wow.
Special guy who gives a lot back to the communities all over this country. I think he last year gave away like 1.5 million of his own money.
People don't realize that. They think he's a big clown. He gives a lot back.
Dude has a big heart.
Yeah.
He's a big spirit and a big personality for sure. But he's special and he's authentic. And that's what I love about Pat. That's another. Jake and Pat would have been deep pals. You know, they're authentic.
They would have been dangerous together.
Oh yeah. But that was a beautiful gesture by Pat. And it just speaks to the scholarship. But then fast forward, so I show up to South Carolina in 2021 to award the first scholarship, and Coach Beamer gives me the opportunity to speak to the team and make the announcement at 7:45 in the morning. And it was hard. I was nervous as hell. I'm not a public speaker at the time. I was way more private. I'm a sports marketing executive agent, so I was always behind the scenes. My clients were the people out in front, camera in the spotlight. Jake was the spotlight guy, not me. And I felt like Jake was holding me up that day because I needed every ounce of strength to stand there and talk to those guys and make the announcement. And Matthew Bailey was the first recipient, a long snapper from DeLand, Florida, great kid who's actually at Toledo now. He's got 1 year of eligibility left, getting a graduate degree. And we've awarded 4 at South Carolina now to all 4 great kids. Wow. Many of them are all SEC academic. They're gritty. They're tough. They're, on the smaller side. They were overlooked. They came from small schools, but they have a love for the game. And they have great qualities on and off the field. And that was important to us. And Coach Beamer's done a great job of making sure the recipient aligns with a lot of what Jake stood for. And then, so we come around to May of 22, and Liam and I go out to South Dakota to award the first scholarships there. And the Lakota elders at the school asked me how I came up with the Jake Panus walk-on scholarship name at South Carolina. And I told them the story and what a walk-on football student athlete means in the parlance. And they said, that's interesting because we have a different definition for walk-on. And I was like, really? And they said, yeah. In our culture, when someone dies, we believe they walk on in their journey, that death is not the end point of a linear pathway. And I was like, oh my God, it was like the universe just brought it all together. And so we, at their insistence, renamed the scholarship there, the Jake Panus Walk-On Scholarships. So to name that. And it was like I said, the universe brought it together, and it's what we have to do as a family to survive this walk on. It's what people have to do anytime they face anything hard and struggle or adversity that seemingly wants to keep them down. And so it was a natural title for the book, and it's become kind of like the calling card, Walk On for Jake. And I just had a meeting yesterday here in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is a underserved community in our state. And we're launching the 3rd scholarship in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club there, and a 4th to 8th grade football program to award college scholarships to these kids who participate in this football program, which provides tutoring and meals and things these kids don't necessarily get that we take for granted. And then they help get them into high schools, public and private. And so this is the next step. This helps them get into college and some of them can't afford getting home, or getting a laptop.
Look at how Jake continues to live on, continues to touch and help people. It's amazing what you guys have done.
Well, it's what Jake would be doing if he was here. So it just feels like a natural continuation of everything that he stood for and would want. Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Can you share? I know you have speaking engagements. You said you don't like to speak in public. Well, you're a public speaker now. I mean, you hit the circuit. So you've kind of been thrust into that. But do you mind telling more about that as well as Walk On and who that might be for? The reviews are amazing.
Well, thank you. I am an inspirational speaker now. Like I said, everything in my life changed. I left my job last May. Everything in your life does change when you go through this. You cannot be the same person. You look at life differently. you just do. I subscribe to this concept that dates as far back as 700 AD by Hassan al-Basri, who said life is made up of 3 days: yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yesterday's come and gone. We can't do anything to change it. We can learn from it, but what has happened has happened. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Why are we going to worry and waste time being anxious about something that may never come into fruition? But today is what we got. And so you maximize it, you live it. It's the present moment and being really present. And yeah, the book continues to help people. It's available on Amazon. My website has a link. My website's stephenpanus.com, just my name.
Good.
And it's impactful to see how much it's helping people. And I get random emails, phone calls even. I've connected with a lot of bereaved dads in this process and made some really cool, special friends. And, that's something that sometimes we don't even have to talk, and we know what the other person's thinking or feeling, and it's a special bond. But yeah, I'm headed down to Louisville like this weekend to speak at an event, and I'll be in your town in late July in Atlanta.
Yep.
Speaking at another event. So it's something that, again, it allows me as a father. Like, I lost everything when I lost Jake, right? I lost not just my son, but I lost a future with him.
Yep.
Every moment, every holiday, every birthday, it's gone. But by speaking, I'm able to raise awareness for why we're here on this planet. And I'm able to take Jake to other places because he's with me. And I hear his name said aloud, not just by myself, but by others. And I hear stories about how Jake inspired them to do something maybe they thought they couldn't do, or overcome something, or step outside their comfort zone. And for me, that's what public speaking was. Like I said, I was not comfortable doing it. I never thought in my wildest imagination that I would ever be the guy out front speaking to crowds and audiences and trying to inspire them. But that's what I'm doing now.
I'm sure that makes Jake smile.
Probably.
Yeah.
He's behind me, holding me up, and it's Jake coming through me is what I tell people.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the book is not just for people who have lost a child or who have lost somebody.
Right.
It's much more than that, correct?
Yeah, it's for anybody that's looking for inspiration and hope.
Yeah.
In whatever they're facing, because we all suffer.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens or how it happens, we're all capable of finding a way to walk on.
Those going through challenges, whatever it may be, just kind of getting through it. Because my gosh, if anybody knows how to get through hell, it's you. You've been there. Look, I don't want to. I know you're busy. I don't want to keep you too long, but I feel like your perspective on fatherhood is probably a different perspective than most, if that makes sense. Is there anything that you've learned about fatherhood with all that you've been through that you would like to share?
I mean, some of it seems so obvious, but it's savor the little things, right? Because the little details matter most. When like you asked earlier, like, well, what do you remember about Jake? Well, guess what? It's the little moments that we so often take for granted. That's what comes flashing back into my head.
Yeah.
Every single little moment where there was a crack of a smile, a loud laugh, that great bear hug. And don't take anyone or anything in life for granted. We live like that, a lot of us, right? Where, they'll be there tomorrow or they'll be there next week. It might not be. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know what the next hour is going to bring. So don't take anyone or anything in life for granted. Savor the little things and love and lift each other up, because it's why you're here.
It's beautiful. What else would you like to share? Anything else that we didn't cover?
I think we covered it. I am working on book number 2. It's going to be a little bit different than obviously Walk On, but I don't know how long that's going to take, but
Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I think it's a novel.
Okay.
So I'm going off in a different tangent. But it'll have some certainly relatable concepts. At the end of the day, you write about what you know. So what I know is sports and resilience and hardship and overcoming hardship. So it's a little bit about that. woven into hopefully what turns out to be a unique and compelling story.
You know, I said it earlier. I am sorry. I'm very sorry for everything you, your wife, and Liam have had to go through. I mean, I am. I appreciate you sharing the story, talking about Jake, and I admire you as a person, as a man, and your strength and how you have turned hell into a positive and helping others. I mean, I appreciate that, and I thank you for doing that. And that's something to be highly admired. And I just, I don't know how you do it. There's definitely an inner strength that I envy there that you have. But I thank you. I really do. And I'm going to make sure your website is stephenpanus.com. It's I'm going to link it. Yep. But for those listening, it's STEPHENPANUS, correct?
.com. Yep.
And I'll tag you on everything as well, with social media. And I appreciate you coming on. I really do. I appreciate you, telling your story and sharing about Jake. I really do.
If you don't mind, another thought just popped in my head that I do want to share because it's pretty compelling. About 6 months after Jake died, my wife turned to me and said, when the time is right, Jake is going to send someone to us. And I said, okay.
Where did she get that thought?
She just had it.
Came in. Okay.
Yeah. And she asked me months later to put out to our minister that if they ever heard of a child in need of love or a home, to let us know. And I even said, do you think we could create this kind of reverse fresh air program with the Lakotas? Mm-hmm. Like we bring some of them here for the summer and host them. And the more we talked about it, we realized that wasn't going to work. They're just a little bit reserved about and reticent about letting the children leave the reservation. There's a huge culture shock that occurs, and there's a protective nature, which I certainly respect from their shoes, not trusting fully the white man, and they got many, many reasons not to.
Yeah.
So that wasn't going to work. But anyway, we put a bug in her ear. In February of 23, Kelly, Liam, and I, it was bitter cold here, and we needed to get away. We want to go somewhere warm. We want to get out of the house. So we booked a trip to Barbuda and Antigua. And we literally had just landed in Barbuda. It's a small island right off the Antigua, super small. And we were on the way to the little house shack that we were going to be staying at on a beach for a few days when my phone buzzed. And it was the minister. And she said, hey, there's a young woman who is in need of a home. She's been homeless since October. She's been couch surfing on friends' homes, many of them fellow church members. But she's getting placed in the foster system. She's a scholar athlete, and she goes to a private school 2 minutes from our house that she got herself into as a sophomore. Are you interested? And I just wrote back yes before I went and shared it with Kelly. Kelly spent the rest of the vacation on the phone with social workers and some of the moms who had hosted her. And we came home thinking there's a 75% chance that this young lady's going to be dropped off to us in the next 7 to 10 days. And so we knew we had to address Jake's room, where she was going to be, if she came, that's where she was going to stay. That was the empty bedroom. We hadn't touched Jake's room. Everything was just as it was.
Yeah.
So that was hard. We came home and we tackled that and tried to transform it as much as we could with what we had into a girl's room. And the next day we got a phone call that said we're bringing her over at 8:00. And we hadn't told Liam. So we asked Liam if he was okay with it, because if he wasn't, we weren't going to do it. But Liam immediately, his eyes got big. He lit up. He was like, yeah, that sounds great. So this young woman named April came into our home with 3 social workers that evening. She had a backpack in a small bag that was all her worldly possessions. And we filled out the paperwork. Liam gave April a little tour of the house. The social workers left, and as they left, they said, goodbye, Mr. and Mrs. Panus. And April heard that, and we went I went up and showed her the room, and I said, make yourself at home. I pulled out a drawer. I said, everything's empty. Just do, fill your stuff into the drawers or whatever. And she stopped and said, well, how long am I going to be here? Pretty good question. And I said, as long as you want. So Kelly came up and she started to help her unpack a little bit. And I stepped out and I heard April asked, whose room is this? And Kelly said, it's our late son's room. And she said, what was his name? And Kelly said, Jake. And she's like, Jake Panus? And we're like, Kelly's like, yeah. She's like, oh my God, I heard of him. And she was from about 30 minutes away. And again, Jake left a large footprint, and she was younger, 2 years younger, but she had heard of Jake. And
wow,
it's really funny how it's played out. When she has curly hair, Jake has curly hair, right? She's a lefty, Jake's a lefty. Scholar athletes. She does things that absolutely cause Kelly and I to turn and look at each other with our jaws open, being like, that's exactly what Jake would have done. And this is where it gets weird. When Jake was little, we lived in Las Vegas. He was 4 years old. He was in a Montessori school. He started telling everyone he had a sister, and he was adamant. And both grandmothers got really concerned with his wild imagination that we needed to curb it, that he didn't have a sister. He's got to stop saying it. And he said it a lot. I asked him one day, why do you say that? Why do you think that? And he goes, because I do. I'm like, all right. Fast forward, he went on that mission trip at age 15. A couple weeks later, I'm at a sporting event with a dad whose son also went on that trip. And the dad asked me, hey, can I ask you a question that's a little bit awkward? I was like, dude, you can ask me anything, Mark. And he's like, hey, my son said Jake told him he had a sister. Did you and Kelly kind of have previous marriages, then you kind of Brady bunched it together? And I'm like, no, what, And he's like, oh, because Jake said, he had a sister and we were just trying to figure it out. And I just started laughing. I'm like, boy, I haven't heard that in a few years. Came home and told Cal.
How old was he then?
15.
Okay.
1 year before he died. And I have a picture. I'll send it to you after this.
Yeah.
I found it later, of a crayon drawing that he did at age 5. And it's a family drawing, right? And he drew the family and he labeled everybody. And he's got a sister in there holding Liam's hand, and it looks just like April. So we're convinced Jake sent us his sister, and it saved my wife's life. And it's been the most incredible blessing that we have immense gratitude for, because I honor that not everyone that loses a child gets another child. We were too old to have another child. And we had just started looking into maybe the foster system, maybe adopting. But now we have this beautiful, I'm a girl dad now. We have this beautiful young woman who's, she's a freshman. She just finished her freshman year at Bucknell University. She got an academic full scholarship there. Just amazing young woman with more drive and more grit. She's been through more hell that would have knocked down and deterred most people, and she's something special. So it's just an amazing story, and it shows you the power of belief and light and love.
That's amazing. I have all these thoughts in my head, just kind of this spirit sister. And then it's also, did Jake subconsciously have this feeling, and that his time was limited, to make the most of it, and that there was this spirit sister out there somewhere that would come into your family.
Yeah.
It's, it's all these things that are unexplained that we'll know the answers to one day.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely beautiful.
When Jake left on that Friday morning, we all were it was like 7:30 in the morning, August 7th. We were in our pajamas. We're on the mudroom porch waiting for the girlfriend to show up to pick him up, and her mom. And they pulled in the driveway, and Jake was sitting there with his luggage, and he turned to us. And literally the last words my son said to me and to us was, y'all are looking at me like you'll never see me again. He hugged us and walked down the driveway, flashed his peace sign, and got in the car. So that one took a long time to wrap my head around.
So I've made it 1 hour.
Yeah,
We're wrapping up, and you had to do that.
he had to do that.
Wow,
Yeah.
man. I can't think of I can't. Wow. I thank you for sharing that. I do.
Thanks for having me on,
So,
Robert. I appreciate it.
Stephen, I thank you. I thank you for coming on. I thank you for doing all that you're doing. And I just, if I could, I would give all three, well, I guess all four of you a hug and praying for you guys. And, I look forward to hopefully meeting you guys one day in person. I mean, I really
Definitely.
do.
I'm
And
hoping that.
might have to come to South Carolina for a game.
Amen. It's a
And
great experience. You
yeah,
should.
we'll have to meet up there. I'll have to find out when you guys are going to a game and have to meet up. Definitely have to do that. But look, I thank you, and I thank you for sharing your story. I thank you for all that you're doing. I have not read it yet, but from all the reviews, I highly recommend Walk On. Within a week, I'll be able to legitimately recommend it. And look, thank you again for coming on, and thank you all for listening to the Dad to Dads podcast. You can find us on Spotify or Apple, as well as most platforms. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as well as leave a comment. I read every comment. I love the suggestions and the feedback that you guys provide. And I look forward to talking with you all next time.